Jeff from Two Hacks Garage. Well, you guessed it. It's another video on assembling that 388 cubic inch small block stroker for Todd's 1980 Z28 that we call Project Fast Times. The bottom end is pretty much taken care of in this. If you watch previous videos, you'll know where we're at. So kind of the next step with this that I'm going to do is I'm going to install the oil pump, the pickup, and that's pretty much it for this video. The reason I'm doing this completely separate from everything else is I am doing a special pickup with this. This came from Summit. It's part of their deep sump pan kit, and this goes on a certain way, not like a regular small block Chevy oil pump pickup. Now, I am using a Mellings made in the USA M55A. This is the high pressure pump. We opened up oil passages and all that, so we want a little bit higher of a pressure to really push oil through. And we're going to show you how to prep one of these oil pumps prior to firing up the vehicle. How are we going to mount it? Well, ARP. They make very quality products. Everything else on this engine is ARP, so that's how we're going to mount it. And the actual pump rod that we're using on this is also Mellings. This is one of their heavy duty ones. This engine's going to rev. It's going to make some decent amount of power, so we want everything to be strong in there. So the first step that we're going to do is we're going to show you how to not only install the specialty pickup that comes from Summit, but to also how to prep one of these oil pumps from Melling. Now, mind you, this pump does come with an additional spring. It's an optional relief spring if you wanted to lower the oil pressure 10 to 15 psi. At this time, we're not going to even worry about that. We're going to keep with the high pressure one in there. I'm not going to put the pan on at this point. The only reason being is we're going to have this engine flipped, and if anything was to accidentally fall within here and comes through, I don't want to have to take the pan off and go fishing for that. So this is just getting this bottom end taken care of. I tell you what, guys, it's been a day. I've made a lot of videos today with Jimmy, and we're just going to get this done, call it a day, and I'll finally be able to go home and eat some dinner. So with that, let's go see on how to do all this. Catch you in a few. All right, so the first step of this is you're going to put this in a vise. You're going to clamp it down nice and snug, but not overly snug, and you're going to remove the top, well, the cover of the oil pump. Mind you, I like to use hand tools on this. I'm not a fan of anything power. I like to feel everything come loose and not ruin anything. So you're literally just going to take this off. And the whole goal, the reason why is, like I said, we're not changing out that spring on this, but we want to, one, we have to put the non-factory style pickup on this, and also we also want to prep the gears in here that spin the pump. So you just take this cover off. I'm going to set it right here, and inside here you have those two gears, and what happens is those spin like this, and that creates, faster it spins, more oil. And you see these passages? Well, it's going to push all of that through. There's your pickup tube, so it's going to pull it in right there. It's going to dump it, and it's going to push it. So what we're going to do here is we're going to add some assembly lube in there. And the reason you do that is you kind of want to have this not dry upon pickup. So I'm just going to put some in there like that, and I'm going to spin that a little bit. I'm just making those gears have some lubrication, so upon startup it's not dry and create some metal burrs. So if you see when I turn that like that, it's working that assembly lubrication. Now this is a kind of a heavier weight, like an AMSOIL assembly lube. It's specifically built for engine builders, it says, whatever. Yeah, so we'll work that back and forth, and the whole idea is to get lubrication down onto the actual gear faces itself in between there. Work it back and forth. If you need to, you can add a little bit more. You can also go up and down with it to force that lubrication in there. So I'm going to add just a tiny bit more in there. Let that kind of seep down in there. Turn it a little bit more. Let it go down, work it way back up again. Get everything nice and lubricated. So this is just kind of priming this up. So like I said, you don't want this to be dry on fire up. Go back the other way. We're going to call it good to go. Now what I'm going to do, I'm just going to wipe this surface clean of any free oil in there. Make sure it's clean. I'm going to put the housing back on. Now mind you, this housing here, or sorry, the pickup here, the one I got from Summit, it does need to have this to be free, the back two, for this to go on. So what I'm going to do is I'm only going to put the front two in. I'm going to put them in finger tight. Slip this thing in. Sometimes you need a driver for this. I know Jimmy just recently made a cool little driver tool for it, so we might actually have to use that. Might be able to work it in there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get the tool from Jimmy, and I'm going to get that thing. What's happening is, guys, if you look here, this needs to be seated, and those back holes need to line up. I don't want to go really beating on it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go get Jimmy's tool to get that in place. So I will be right back. All right, so Jimmy made himself a cool little tool.
I didn't make anything.
And, well, he didn't make it. He already had this metal collar. And you don't want to go really mashing on here and collapse this tube. And sometimes you want the even drive on there. So he had a really good idea when we were putting together another small block. He's got this little collar. And the way that collar works.
All it is one of those shaft collars. I had a guy give me a whole box full of them things at the factory. He went out of business. He worked at a few years ago, and he gave them to me, and I've had them laying around ever since. I think it's only the second here, not too tight. The only second one I've ever used. So what we do is, you don't want to beat on the tube like he said right here where my finger is. So what we do is we clamp this little clamp on, then we beat the beeswax out of the clamp.
And it works pretty well. Because what happens is that clamp hits that seat portion that we were looking at. Now, mind you, Jimmy will, on some of these, he'll braze these together, but we don't need to do that because we're going to actually put two little bolt holes, or heliarcs, sorry.
Okay, get that thing reclamped somehow.
It's in here. Or you want it the other way?
Yeah, different way, because it's going to rock when I beat on it.
All right, so what we're going to do is reclamp this in here.
Well, we're going to reclamp it like this.
Okay. So what you're going to watch here is you see that clamp, and you can see right here how it's on that lip. Well, we're going to drive that down.
I got to go see if there's anything in her toolbox. I'll be right back. Those hammers I got are garbage. They're getting worse.
So Jimmy's looking for a good hammer for that, and While he does that, I'm just putting some tools away, grabbing a wrench. Because when you put that pickup on there, what happens is you can't get a good wrench or get a good socket on there because it's too shallow. All right. So what he looks for his other ball peen. And get some of these just snugged up a little bit. Just like that. And I'll do a final tightening on those here in a minute.
Not the hammer I wanted, but it'll work.
So watch what he's going to do here. He's going to drive that thing down.
No, we gotta watch what we do here. We gotta do this. Here, hold it like that. Maybe that'll do it.
Hold on one second.
Did it go down?
One.
Did it go down?
Yes,
Did it go down?
it did.
Check your bolt holes, see if they're in alignment. Close.
Close enough. A little more. Yep, we're on. All right, so what you see there, he hit that collar, we seated that, and it lined these bolt holes up. So what I'm going to do is finish putting that together, getting some things tightened up on it. Just clamping this, not really tight, just somewhat loose. But first thing first, what I need to do is I need to take that collar off, which, you know what, that method works very well. I'm digging that. Because like I said, if you hit that pickup tube, you can smash it, which at that point restricts oil flow, and you don't want that to happen.
That is a nice little pickup they made.
All right, so from there, I'm going to put these in and tighten them down. Went ahead and added some assembly lube inside the pump housing, basically so it's not a dry startup. We're leaving the high pressure spring inside of there. Snug these up here. This is a cool design the way they have it. Like I said, this is a oil pan and pickup kit that adapts to the factory style Mellings pump. We use Mellings products in all of our engines. Work very, very well. Never have a problem with those. And they're easily rebuildable too. Those little gears in there really don't wear out. Jimmy was showing some old ones he had in some of his old nitro engines, and they still look new.
You might want to tell them if they don't want to buy one of those real fancy tools that's anywhere from $30 to $90. Go to the hardware store and get one of them shaft collars. That's 5/8, by the way, is what size this is. Get a 5/8 shaft collar, clamp it on there, smack it with a big punch, or that's an old chisel that's been beat on so many times, and I ground it flat for knocking bearing races out. It works just perfect. It'll save you the bucks.
All right, there we go. on to the next step. All right, so here's...
Let me put a little oil on it.
We're going to put a little oil on that. So there's a stud, like I said, I got from ARP that's going to go in here. And it's a good thing to check if there's more hole than there is stud so it actually sits properly.
Well,
which,
if it bottoms out, it'll push on the back of the main bearing.
Yeah.
And, yeah, you don't want that.
So basically just a little oil on there. Going to run that down.
But where's the... Here it is. I think. Hope it's the same.
So this is just like the studs that we put in on the mains. It's got the Allen head on top.
Yep.
And you're just going to make that snug. So
Oil.
Jimmy's going to put a little oil on there. All right, so the next step, what you need to do is, you see you have your Mellings oil shaft here.
Yeah.
That goes to your distributor, but we got to get that in there now.
But that doesn't just...
It just doesn't slide in there very easily. It's a keyed shaft, as you can see.
Did you
What
tap that on?
it just pressed on. So we'll show you what it looks like. Jimmy's just tapping the rod on. It's just a little plastic collar that holds everything tight. So
Okay, but they also make one that got a metal bushing on it. And it's... I prefer them, but if it's a race engine, fine. These are fine. But this is actually GM factory, what this is. Now, this does not get a windage tray?
no,
Okay.
it's got a special baffled pan. All right, so it's got a 12-point nut on it. So Jimmy got that rod in there. And there was no torque specs
Yes, there is.
that I saw with the hardware. So what Jimmy's going to do is he's going to go get the factory torque specs on this.
I just did that on his. I'll go look and see. Well, you're going to be surprised what it is.
Yeah.
It's pretty healthy. I'll be right back.
So if you look right there, just get that snug down. And I'm going to find out what size this thing is. I'm going to guess it's a 1/2 inch. Sure is. Sorry, kicked the stand. So I'm just going to snug that up. And Jimmy's going to go look at the torque spec on that. So this has been tightened up. It's all good to go. While Jimmy that works that up, I am going to take a quick 5. See you in a minute. All right, so this is a 1/2 inch. I'm going to get this kind of tight because the torque spec that Jimmy looked up on Summit's website, 60 to 70 foot-pounds. So I'm just going to, snug this up a little bit on it so we don't have to use as much on the torque wrench.
Hard to believe that the oil pump bolt torques 60 or 70 pounds. But I'm going to torque it at 65. And I'm going to split the difference.
Jimmy, you need a socket for that?
And probably extension. We may have an issue. We may have a real issue. May have to take the plate off of it.
Let me see
I
that.
think you're going to have to take the plate off of it. You ain't going to get it in there. Nope.
See, that's a specialty.
Nope.
Okay, so learning lesson for
What
us.
size is that?
10.
Okay, I'll be right back.
So learning lesson for us, because of this specialty pickup, we can't torque this the way we want to. We don't have enough room. So we're going to take that plate off and we're going to go ahead and torque it. Normally you could probably get through here with an extension. Well, we can't do that with this. All right, so that plate's coming off. because it was in our way. That's a learning lesson. Never used this before.
There you go.
So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to torque this down to 65 foot-pounds. As Jimmy said, it was 60 to 70, and I'm going to go 65.
Very good.
We're good.
I was kind of amazed at how much they wanted to torque it too, the first time I ever looked it up. You stop and think about it, all the vibration going on from running that oil pump, and it's right there, and the heat and everything right in the oil pan. I guess it makes perfectly good sense.
Want to make sure you snug these up pretty good.
Probably there's truth on it. Probably some kind of torque specs on that. I know that Chevrolet, I know GM's got a torque spec on the old Chevy valve cover gaskets and fan gaskets. It's inch pounds, but then they still leak.
And there we go.
If anybody's in doubt where you get Chevy torque specs, just go to Summit. It's easy. Just Google Chevy torque specs. Summit comes up, hit it, works fine.
And they got it. See you in a minute. Well, that video was actually pretty straightforward. I just wanted to show you the importance of, pre-lubing the inside of the oil pump housing, and explained why, and then showed you how to install a Mellings pump with a custom pickup tube. Because you know what, guys? We got this nice custom Summit pan that's pre-baffled and all that. This helps windage, and it also helps from oil from baffling around in there, so you don't want to get any air pockets on that when you're trying to pick up oil. So yeah, it was a pretty straightforward video. Nothing crazy, but it's a step that you really got to make sure you pay attention to. Oiling is very important. Yeah, so you know what? We're getting really close to actually buttoning that up, and that actually is going to look really, really sharp. I'm kind of digging it, guys. With that, Jimmy and I are going to call it a day.
Before you bolt this pan down permanently, make sure that windage screen's tight, because I've run into that before.
Yeah, we'll inspect this oil pan to make sure everything's kosher with it, ready to go. Nice part about this pan, it is custom. It is made in the USA. It's a quality product. Really good reviews on it. I got it from Summit, but you know what? This is kind of looking like a much better complete engine than it was before. So with that, guys, you know what? I'm hungry. I'm tired. I know Jimmy is too. We'll catch you on the next video. Later.